blueandgold.com, recruiting insider Mike Singer, joined by our beat writer to the over here, and below me is Lou Somogyi, our senior editor at blueandgold.com and Blue and Gold Illustrated. Guys, figured let's have a little roundtable staff meeting here and discuss the state of Notre Dame football and the 2020 schedule, because it's certainly in flux right now. Let's start by going to Patrick with just what is the status? What's been canceled? What conferences have gone to conference-only schedules? Just what's the lay of the land right now?
So Notre Dame is down to 9 games on its 2020 schedule for now, after the Big Ten and the Pac-12 went to conference-only slates last week. So, of course, that takes away the October 3rd game at Lambeau Field with Wisconsin, and then the annual series with Stanford and USC. Stanford was supposed to come to South Bend on October 10th, and as is custom in even years, Notre Dame was going to USC to finish out the regular season. This year it would have been on November 28th. Those are gone. Now Notre Dame's kind of left to fill it in as needed, and that'll still be sorted out in the coming weeks. And also, as of Monday morning, SEC athletic directors are meeting to go over some plans and discuss what they're going to do. Of course, that pertains to Notre Dame, considering Arkansas is on the schedule for September 12th. Big Ten, Pac-12 are the only two that have announced conference-only schedule plans, at least among FBS conferences. The ACC will make a decision later in July. Nothing final there. The coaches have reportedly been told of a conference-only plan that is an option, but is not final at this point. And of course, this is a big one, considering 6 of the 12 games on Notre Dame's schedule are against ACC teams. But even if that goes conference-only, and the other leagues like the SEC and the American with Navy do, Notre Dame isn't going to be left here playing with no schedule and playing independents like Liberty and New Mexico State. By all indications at this point, ACC Commissioner John Swofford has said Notre Dame will be included in a conference-only plan if the ACC goes that route. So no, at this point, if there's a season, there's no reason to worry about, oh, Notre Dame's going to get screwed and they're going to be off playing home and homes against teams they're supposed to smack 60-0 that would bring terrible TV ratings and, of course, bring about all this discussion of, all right, Notre Dame goes 10-0 or whatever against Army and Liberty and New Mexico State. But now, and as far as it stands right now, if there is a season and everything in the conference-only trend continues, expected to be made of primarily ACC teams.
Yeah, Notre Dame's just too big of a brand that people are not going to want to try to fit the Fighting Irish in their schedule. Patrick, you wrote an article on Sunday evening, which of course everyone can check out at blueandgold.com, about Miami wanting to play the Fighting Irish. What can you tell us about that?
So Miami's athletic director has told the Miami Herald that they'd be open to playing Notre Dame. And Miami, of course, is not one of the 6 ACC teams on Notre Dame's 2020 schedule. They are next scheduled to play in 2024 and 2025. As you look at it right now, they don't have any common open dates. But again, if things continue to go conference only, they'd open up the first 3 weeks of the season where each is supposed to play non-ACC teams. And of course, if everything's a conference only schedule, the whole point is flexibility of spacing it out over the same time in which you'd hold a regular 12-game season. So anything can kind of be reworked in that sense. And if you're looking for, all right, what games make sense to play as far as what's going to draw a good TV audience, I don't really know what better you can do than Notre Dame and Miami. Of course, there's plenty of intrigue with what happened the last time with Notre Dame going down to Miami and getting destroyed in a top 10 battle that ended some playoff hopes and kept Miami's alive for a little bit longer, although those were, of course, ultimately thwarted. But certainly if you're looking for intriguing games to try to add something to this weird season, this makes too much sense for either team to say, no, we're not interested, and have every reason to try to get this done, assuming that they go to a conference-only plan, which would be the most likely way for that to be worked out and fit in the framework of this season. So certainly something I think a lot of people should be excited for, and that there would be momentum on at least one of the school's ends we know already to try to get that done if things progress to the point where Notre Dame's going to need more games, Miami's going to need more games, and the ACC goes a route where they're only playing each other this year.
Now, Lou, what is your best case scenario for Notre Dame's schedule this season? Put all the pessimism that we all have aside. What's the best case scenario for the Irish schedule this year?
Just to have a season.
Yeah.
It's just like for everybody else. If they're able to have a full conference ACC schedule and qualify for the ACC championship in order to get to the playoff, I think that would be ideal. Now, some would debate that because Clemson is the overwhelming favorite to win the ACC, and Notre Dame is already slated to host Clemson on November 7th. Well, what if Notre Dame achieves that victory, and then in the ACC championship game, if again these plans come together at the end of the month where Notre Dame would qualify for the ACC championship, what if they have to face Clemson again in the ACC championship? That might not be considered a best case, or the reverse. If Clemson were to defeat Notre Dame in the regular season, Notre Dame runs the table everywhere else. Would Clemson and Notre Dame meet again for the right to go to the college football playoff? Whether that's going to be 4 teams again this year, who knows? So everything is on the table, really. But to be able to play perhaps for a league title and qualify for the playoff and have a full season, those would be that's what you would be looking for at this point.
Now, Lou, do you think there's any possibility to where this ends up with Notre Dame in a conference full time, for the foreseeable future, or do you think it would just be a temporary thing?
Well, right now it would be a temporary thing. You don't make decisions like this based on something as unique as what's happening with the coronavirus right now. You don't make long-term decisions because of a short-term problem right now. But, one of the things we covered in our 2020 yearbook, which we published a couple of weeks ago, was what do the 2020s hold for Notre Dame? By the time 2030 comes around, will Notre Dame be in the ACC? When the 2010 started, were people envisioning West Virginia being in the Big 12 and Missouri in the SEC and Texas A&M in the SEC and, my gosh, Rutgers, Maryland, Nebraska in the Big 10? There's just a constant upheaval right now in college football. And maybe 10 years from now, who's to say what's going to happen? Maybe these are the opening steps for it, but for right now, no, I don't see it because of a short-term issue.
Guys, I'm looking at the full college football landscape in terms of scheduling. I mean, and practices coming up. I mean, if you're a Notre Dame fan, what is there even to expect the rest of this month? Is there any stab you guys can take at that?
Voluntary workouts ended this past week, and mandatory ones started today on the 13th. And then later in July, I believe it's the 24th, is when it's going to get to walkthroughs with the football, had to be specified. But really, for the rest of the month, no, there's not going to be a whole lot that comes out of, all right, here's what, football decisions are being made as far as who looks good at this position of, particular intrigue, or, which freshmen are standing out. None of that stuff will really get into much until August 7th when training camp opens. So a lot of this month is just continuing to ramp up, and a lot of strength workouts, just now able to work with the coaches a little bit more. And of course, who even knows if we get to August 7th at this point. And perhaps Notre Dame will, considering its testing numbers in Indiana as a whole have been good compared to what's happening in other parts of the country. But whether that gets to any point of playing a season or starting the season on time. Who knows? Jack Swarbrick even said last week he's less optimistic that it starts on time. But as far as this month, if everything remains on schedule for the next few weeks at least, it'll still be a lot of strength workouts, group training with Matt Bayless and strength and conditioning staff, and some walkthroughs and practicing plays in a walkthrough format with the coaching staff.
Yeah, from a summer's perspective, we're looking at 4 phases. They completed phase 1 with the quote unquote voluntary workouts that began June 22nd. Phase 2 begins today with the mandatory workouts. That's July 13th through the 23rd. That's kind of by NCAA edict, an 8-hour per week session there. July 24th, as Patrick alluded to, is when you begin the kind of regular 20-hour per week regimen, which can be divided into 8 hours of strength and conditioning work, 6 hour of film review, and 6 hours maybe with football. That's all got to be monitored and put together by the staff. And then August 7th would be the final phase where you begin the actual preseason workouts. Now, we hear all the time injury reports when a coaching staff or a medical staff will give the nebulous day-to-day report. Football is day-to-day right now as far as where everything is. You saw what a dramatic flux occurred last week. On Thursday or on Wednesday, the Ivy League announces they won't be engaging in any football or fall sports at all until maybe the spring. On Thursday, the Big Ten announces that it's going conference-only schedule. On Friday, the Pac-12 follows suit, and then now we've got the other conferences also in debate. So everything is truly day to day.
And it's like there's still so many questions that have to be answered. Even if the season starts on time, there's no guarantee that it ends like everyone would have planned. So in terms of the start, you would think by that August 7th date, we should have an indication on whether or not. I mean, it would just be hard to imagine getting into 2 weeks before the season starts and you're still unsure. So we should have some indication. How much have, different pundits or ADs talked about a delayed season, guys? Is that something that's on the table? Maybe starting the college football season into October, November, and finishing it up in the winter, January, February. Is that something that's on the table at all? I'm sure everything is at this point.
Right, and that's really it. Nothing is really a stupid, out of the question thing right now. I mean, like I said, just last week, Jack Swarbrick had said, yes, I'm less optimistic that we start the season on time. And by August 7th, yes, there will be kind of widespread conclusions in a sense of, all right, are these openers on week 0, that last week of August for the select teams that play that week, or September 5th for most of the teams, including Notre Dame at Navy? At that point, we'll know what exactly is going to happen there. But yes, absolutely. And part of it's the conference on these schedules gives you the flexibility of, okay, if we've got to start and we can start on September 5th and space out 10 games over a period, you'd play 12 or 13. Okay, you can do that. If you've got to delay it and not start until, say, the weekend of September 19th or 26th or whatever, and then just rapid fire off 10 games without a bye or something like that, yeah, that's something you can do as well. Really, what a lot of these decisions made in the last week have come down to is giving you flexibility. When you look at a spring season, and this is just me kind of thinking out loud, I can understand how the Ivy would be able to play a season that starts in the second semester sometime, whether that's January or March or whatever, although I can't imagine there'd be a lot of excitement about lining up a bunch of people against each other in Boston in January, and Harvard and Yale. And same with the Patriot League, which announced on Monday that it's canceling its fall sports. It'll explore playing in the spring as well. No surprise, considering the Patriot usually follows the Ivy with a lot of those big decisions. But it seems easier to me to imagine that than a power conference team playing out a 10, 12, whatever game schedule with playoff and everything, finishing that sometime in the spring and then running it back again in September. At that point, you create a kind of a 2-year mess in a sense, as opposed to just one. But if that's the alternative that they decide, one is either no season or that, and it's a big enough money thing, obviously that's going to be in play. But if I try to think through it myself, that's a difficult option to do.
Sure.
But certainly nothing that's off the table at this point. Just last week, Brad McMurphy at Stadium did an updated survey with the athletic directors, and it was an increase of ADs who responded, yes, I think we're going to do a spring season and can do a spring season than before. Now it's just realizing that might be one of the only options to get this thing in if trends of outbreaks among teams either continue or grow, or it just becomes impossible to play this season in the fall, or it gets canceled at some point after starting for a couple of games. So certainly seems like something that will be discussed, although personally I can't really see how that would work. But again, if that's the option versus nothing, and nothing is too dangerous as far as a bottom line financial standpoint, yeah, you just might have to do spring.
Yeah, I just think spring football, to me, really, and I know I may be in the minority, it just sounds ludicrous and almost selfish to me toward the student athlete, because what does the NCAA constantly talk about? Best interest of the student athlete. So you're going to play a 10, 12 game season from, let's say, February or March through May, and then turn around with the strength and conditioning program. And never mind that maybe there might still not be any solution or vaccine found in the spring either. And then you're going to turn right around and play 12 more games in the fall.
There's no way. They would have to push
and
that
then
season back.
in a calendar year, you're going to be playing 24 games among college athletes there, when, even in pro football, 16 has sounded ridiculous, no matter the buys and everything else. I have a problem with that. And look, I'm not an athletics director, and I'm not looking at budgets and how is everything going to be paid. So they have to look at every option that is available to them. So I understand why they would be looking into that. But I just think the whole thing, and then, I mean, how many of the top players, they sit out major bowls anyway if they're not for the championship, say, no, the draft is coming up, and
Right.
it's not worth it, and this and that. It's sort of like doing it for the sake of doing it, and without any concrete solution or evidence that there's going to be an answer then either. I understand they do have to look at it, but to me, it just seems out of bounds.
When you look at the NBA, they're doing this. Okay, thankfully for them, they already had so much of their season completed. So they're starting in end of July. I think they're playing several games, and then they start the playoffs. Well, with the NBA, these are all professional athletes who don't have a draft coming up. They don't have school. This is their profession. So they can – I don't know when this NBA season is going to finish up, but then they can just delay that 2021 season and kind of get back into the normal swing of things. But with college athletics, there are just so many more questions that have to be answered and factors in play that, yeah, Lou, when you're talking about the spring, I would think if they do push college football back to the spring, it would have to be like a 6-7 game schedule, something like that, which then just thinking about that brings up so many questions. How would you have a college football playoff? What would that even look like? Or we're just going to play conference games and just everyone gets the first place trophy at that point, and then you would have to delay the following fall. Like you're saying, Lou, there's no way you can play 24 games. I mean, if you play a conference championship game and then 2 playoff games, you're looking at 15 games there plus a fall. That would be crazy to think about.
Maybe 12, just because it'd be a 10-game regular season or a shortened, abbreviated
Right,
regular
right.
season. I don't know, but it's still, we're getting into 15, 16 games in the season. That's quite a bit. Now you're talking 24, 25 in a calendar year.
It's crazy. Yeah.
And I will add this on a spring season. If it comes to that, it will be, these things would be clear. It'd be a money grab. It would be watered down and just a worse product with all of the issues of, all right, if I'm Trevor Lawrence or another top prospect, I've got the draft in April. I don't know what the NFL is willing to do as far as pushing that back and working with college football or anything. So there's a consideration of, all right, am I going to sit it out? So you'd have a worsened product that is clearly just running it out there to, salvage losses of, money that would have come from not playing in the fall with full stadiums and all of that. And it would be bordering on dangerous to try to get 20 plus 25, whatever it ends up being, games in a calendar year. I mean, we talked to Matt Bayless about this in late April, the Notre Dame strength and conditioning coach, and he was asked about it. He said it would be difficult. It would be hard to play a spring season, run it back in the normal fall season, August training camp, September start timeline, as far as getting guys healed and ramped up for another version of what they just did, basically with half the offseason time at best. So that would be a last resort option that I don't think anyone would want to do, and would only be motivated in, let's just try to not lose as much money as we did. But as a pure, what's the upside of playing this from a player standpoint, there's a lot of things that could really go wrong and just be a bad proposition for them.
I think one thing we can all agree on: 2020 sucks. So
yeah,
hopefully the half part of the year is much better than.
Hey, I'm hoping for a college basketball season. Really.
We'll have to do another video on that.
Where you have an NCAA tournament in March, etc., and then maybe recalibrate with football and everything. But right now, that's when you start seeing cancellations of fall sports. And I know the Ivy League and the Patriot League and everything doesn't count to a lot of people. But when you start seeing examples like that being set, a lot of people are going to follow suit. And again, these athletic directors have to look at the bottom line too. So their job is to see what they can do to make this possible. And you can't blame them for that.
Again, many questions that have to be answered. And as we get those answers, we will have full coverage of that at blueandgold.com. Make sure you use promo code Irish60 to get a 60-day free trial of our premium access of our website. And make sure to go to bluegoldonline.com to purchase your order of the 2020 football preview. Again, fingers crossed on that football season, guys.